Good afternoon. God is good. Since the inception of my administration, I've made it clear that the sole mission of my office is to safeguard communities in Baltimore through the effective prosecution of crime. And in order to fulfill this mission, our prosecutors have been sworn to not only aggressively advocate on behalf of victims of crime, but when the evidence exists, to exonerate those that have been falsely accused and convicted. The public must know. How do you feel? Right there.
No, the white Yukon, the white Yukon. Wow. You guys are. Sorry. It's okay. Wow. Jana? Adnan Syed got the shot. Can you guys take one step back? Just one step back. Get off my camera.
So let's start again, guys, right? Good afternoon, everyone. God is good. Since the inception of my administration, I've made it clear that the sole mission of my office is to safeguard communities in Baltimore through the effective prosecution of crime. And in order to fulfill this mission, our prosecutors have been sworn to not only aggressively advocate on behalf of victims of crime, but when the evidence exists, to exonerate those that have been falsely accused or convicted. The public has to know that justice is the only barometer of success for my office, and justice over convictions is not only our mantra, but our mission. And since the start of the administration, my office has paid this mission forward, which is why we created the first conviction integrity unit in the entire state of Maryland, a unit dedicated to reinvestigating claims of actual innocence, a unit that is now a national model replicated throughout the country and the state, and has already successfully exonerated 12 innocent men who cumulatively served 300 years in prison for crimes they did not commit. Justice over convictions is ultimately the reason why my office created in December of 2020 a sentencing review unit where my prosecutors review and modify the excessive sentences of juvenile lifers in the elderly prison population to ensure racial equity in a state that disproportionately incarcerates more black and brown people than any other state in the nation. This unit, which is only the second in the state of Maryland to exist, is headed by former Deputy Public Defender of Maryland, Becky Feldman. We've already modified and recommended the release of over 40 individuals, none of whom have reoffended since the inception of the unit. My sentencing review unit is responsible for the year-long collaborative investigation into this case and today's motion to vacate the conviction of Adnan Syed. The vacatur statute, which was drafted, lobbied, testified to in Annapolis, despite the opposition of almost every one of my colleagues across the state, with the exception of Aisha Braveboy, this vacatur statute is responsible for today's outcome. As we are all aware, Adnan Syed stood trial twice for the homicide of 17-year-old Hayman Lee. A jury in 2000 found him guilty of premeditated murder, kidnapping, robbery, and false imprisonment, and the judge sentenced him to life plus 30 years in prison. Syed ultimately appealed that decision again and again. For the past 7 years, my office provided permission for the original and appellate jurisdiction over the case to the Attorney General's office under the direction of Brian Frosch, where, as all you guys are all aware, both trial judges and appellate courts denied Syed's post-conviction motions. In 2018, Maryland's Court of Special Appeals determined Syed was entitled to a new trial, only for the state's top court to overrule that opinion the following year. And then finally, appealing to the U.S. Supreme Court, the review was declined in 2019. The way that it happened this time, in 2021, Syed's attorneys, Erica Suter, who you will hear from momentarily from the Office of the Public Defender, appealed to my office and brought the case to the attention of Becky Feldman in my sentencing review unit after the Juvenile Restoration Act passed in April of 2021. This act allows people convicted of crimes as juveniles to request a modification of sentence after they have served more than 20 years incarceration. Mr. Syed qualified because he spent more than 22 years. Becky Feldman subsequently led nearly a year-long exhaustive investigation reviewing the substantive facts of this case, where several problematic issues were presented, and thereafter leading my office to file a motion to vacate the conviction of Adnan Syed. Vacatur, as we all have learned today, is a legal mechanism that once again was drafted, lobbied, testified to, and was integral in ensuring that my office was integral in ensuring that it passed, which provides prosecutors with a legal mechanism for the removal of a conviction based off of newly discovered evidence that calls into question the integrity of a conviction based on the interests of fairness and justice. Through our review, our reinvestigation revealed that the original prosecutors and the subsequent prosecutors in the Attorney General's office failed to disclose relevant information about alternative suspects, one of whom threatened to kill the victim and had motive to kill the victim, and both of whom had a pattern of violence against women. Our investigation suggests that the two suspects may have been involved individually or may have been involved together in the death of that beautiful young woman. Once again, through our review, our investigation uncovered that one of the suspects threatened Miss Lee, saying he would make her disappear. He would kill her. We also received information that provided motive for that same alternative suspect. That information was never disclosed to the defendant and is the basis of the Brady violation that the judge has deemed. We also determined in our investigation that one of the alternative suspects was violent towards a woman and forcibly confined her before Adnan Syed's trial. The other suspect has had a history of sexual assault. None of that information was provided to defense counsel by either the original prosecutor or the Attorney General's office, where the original case file still sits. It was through our investigation we also learned that during the original investigation, one of the suspects were improperly cleared by investigators based on faulty polygraph tests and a faulty cell site evidence that was used against Adnan Syed that simply wouldn't stand up in court today. And finally, we found that the previous misconduct of one of the homicide detectives in the Syed's case, a detective that was negatively implicated in my office's first exoneree, Malcolm Bryan, contributed to a wrongful conviction in that separate 1999 murder case. For all of those reasons, my office petitioned the court jointly with Erica Suter from the Office of the Public Defender and asked that Adnan Syed be given a new trial where he is adequately represented and the latest evidence presented in the interests of fairness and justice, which is and has always been the hallmark of my administration as State's Attorney for Baltimore City. At this stage, a trial has been set in for a new trial date. because we're not yet declaring Adnan Syed is innocent, but we are declaring that in the interest of fairness and justice, he is entitled to a new trial. And because this is an ongoing case, there are limits to what I can say in this matter, but it is imperative that we start the process of securing a new trial with adequate representation for Mr. Syed to ensure that the family of Ms. Heyman Lee knows with full confidence that the person responsible for her death and the death of their loved one will be held accountable. Ms. Lee's family deserve closure. They deserve justice, and we intend to fight for them. And while this is just one step in a long fight to make sure the legal system in Baltimore is fair and just for all, I want to reiterate to the residents of Baltimore, as I always have done, that so long as I'm at the helm as State Attorney, I will remain committed to ensuring and pursuing justice and equality for all under the law, which includes victims, witnesses, accusers, and the accused. I said this 4 months following the death of Freddie Gray, and I'm saying it 4 months before the end of my term. Justice is always worth the price paid for its pursuit. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions?
Question. I know in court there was not a lot of detail given about these potential other suspects. How confident are you that these suspects are able to be part of a new trial, accessible, what do you
So I kind of addressed that in my remarks. I cannot, because it's an open and pending matter, I cannot talk about the substance of the case. But I can tell you that we are working with the Baltimore Police Department, and it is an active investigation.
Will that be wrapped up within the 30 days to file a new trial?
So what I can tell you is the investigation is separate and apart from the 30-day mandate. What we are currently waiting for is DNA analysis. And so we are going to try to expedite that. That is with reference to whether or not Adnan's case will be dismissed, a no prost, and we would certify his innocence, or whether or not the case is set in for trial. If the DNA evidence comes back, and I'll just be candid, and it's Adnan Syed, then clearly, there's implication that we have to proceed. That still entitles him to a fair and just trial. But in any event, we're going to wait for the DNA to come back, and we'll make that determination at that stage.
Would someone like to speak on behalf of the family?
Maddie asked you a question. What happens if that DNA test is not finished in 30 days?
Check this camera right here.
So, we'll meet that hurdle when it comes, but that's something that we're attempting to expedite.
In that same vein, though, with the star witness's credibility being impeached and the cell phone data no longer being deemed reliable, is a new trial even possible with the evidence that you have?
So, at this stage, what we want to do is we feel, again, all of these facts go to the integrity of the conviction, which is problematic. And so it's a matter of, and I don't want to interject my opinion, I can just do it based off of the facts. Once the DNA evidence comes in, it will be much more definitive.
What confidence do you have that these kinds of Brady violations aren't still happening in your office?
So let me be clear, it was in my office.
The state's attorney.
But yes, I think we have open discovery. I think that we train our prosecutors, and the mantra and mission and vision of my office, it's very different than what it's been in the past, right? Our mission and vision is justice over convictions. For a very long time, people would measure the success of a prosecutor's office based off of convictions. We don't do that in the city of Baltimore. We go on the basis of justice.
How do you respond to the victim's brother saying you felt blindsided by this when the investigation was going on for a year? You had a week's notice.
So no, I wrote what he said down. He basically said he somewhat felt betrayed, and you can understand why, right? You have some sort of resolution, and you believe that you have closure, and the case comes back up, and it rips a whole new sort of, wound that has healed, and that you think has healed, and so I understand his frustration and his disappointment, but I also understand the importance as the administrator of the criminal justice system to ensure equality and justice and fairness.
This is the last question, guys.
Not meant for the publicity.
have gotten to it this fast?
So we were approached by the Office of the Public Defender and Erica Suter, and she'll talk to you. They wanted to come to us, and they came to us and approached us to do, under the JRA, they wanted us to make a modification of the sentence. He still qualifies for a reduction and a modification of his sentence, but when we got the file and we were in possession of it, and we started to look at it, we saw several problematic issues. And so then we began an investigation that went beyond just that.
Thank you. My name is Erica Suter, S-U-T-E-R. I'm an assistant public defender and director of the Innocence Project Clinic at the University of Baltimore School of Law. I represent Adnan Syed. Today, my friend and client Adnan Syed walks free for the first time in 23 years. In 1999, Adnan was a 17-year-old senior at Woodlawn High School. He'd been accepted into college and planned to major in pre-med. Those dreams were ended when Adnan was accused of the brutal murder of his friend and classmate Heyman Lee. 23 years later, we now know what Adnan and his loved ones have always known, that Adnan's trial was profoundly and outrageously unfair. Evidence was hidden from him, evidence that pointed to other people as the killers. This hidden evidence established that other people had threatened Hayes' life, had hidden her car in places known to them. Under the law, prosecutors should have disclosed this evidence to Adnan so he could defend himself, but they did not. If that evidence had been disclosed, perhaps Adnan would not have missed his high school graduation, or his pre-med plans, or 23 years of birthdays, holidays, family gatherings, community events, everyday moments of joy. And I want to add, perhaps the real killers would have been brought to justice. Today, Adnan Syed is 41 years old. He is a thoughtful, devout, passionate man who is grateful that he can start rebuilding his free life. And I am grateful too, to the court and to the state's attorney's office for doing the right thing today. I also want to thank Adnan's many, many supporters, including, of course, Rabia Chaudhry, Amy Berg, and the countless people across the country who heard his story and believed him. Your faith and friendship has meant everything to Adnan and to me. When prosecutors do not do their duty, when they do not disclose evidence as they are supposed to, the result can be that innocent people like Adnan lose decades of their lives for crimes they did not commit. Equally tragic, the family of the victim in this case, Heyman Lee, recently had to learn that justice, in fact, had not yet been done for their daughter. To Hayes' family, you have endured the unimaginable, and you have my deepest sympathy. I have practiced law in Maryland for 15 years, defending people charged with serious crimes. I and my colleagues at the Office of the Public Defender and the Innocence Network have devoted our lives to fighting for our clients to receive a fair shot, what Adnan should have gotten in 1999. To date, more than 3,000 innocent people have been exonerated in this country. In 44% of those cases, evidence of innocence was not disclosed at trial, just like in Adnan's case. Let me say that again. In nearly half of all exonerations nationwide, the state failed to disclose evidence of innocence. In Baltimore, 80% of the exonerations on record involve withheld evidence. Adnan is one of many. Today, the evidence in Adnan's case has finally led to his freedom. As you can imagine, it is an emotional day for him and his family. He will not be making a statement at this time. He asked you all for privacy so that he can start to heal. Thank you again to everyone who believed in Adnan.
What did he say after the decision?
Thank you, Erica. He said he can't believe it's real.
Do you say what he's looking forward to at all?
I think he's looking forward to being with his family.
And for you, can you talk about your reaction right now to this?
I'm elated and really tired.
concerned at all about the prospect of another trial?
Today is a remarkable day for Adnan. Today we focus on the state and the court doing the right thing. Those decisions will be for another day.
Any other questions for Erica?
Sorry, I missed the top. If I could just ask again. There wasn't a lot of visible reaction from Adnan in the courtroom. I'm sure it was a very kind of surreal moment for him. Have you heard anything else from your client about, what he's excited to do, how he's feeling?
Adnan has been in prison since he was a 17-year-old child, 23 years. As you can imagine, today is both joyful and incredibly overwhelming, and he and his family are processing all of this.
Do you have a question for that?
Could you tell us again his reaction after the decision?
He said he couldn't believe it's real.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.